One of the things that's probably going to be a disruptor to AI's, so I should say America's ability to pursue these technologies is what's going on with president approval ratings at the moment. I've got this graph here in front of me, which you don't need to be able to zoom in to see, which shows that President Trump's approval rating is declining rapidly, in part because of what's going on in the Middle East. I wanted to get, Cenk, your opinion on what all of this stuff is. As someone like me, I don't really know much about politics. I know that there's these midterms coming up in November time in the US, which is going to be consequential. But from a 30,000-foot perspective, how do I pass out the truth of this war? Because Trump seems to be saying different things. Every day there's a ceasefire with Iran, and then they're bombing again. I think 2 days ago they started bombing again, which they call defensive strikes. And then there's a ceasefire, and he says there's a deal about to be done, and then there's some bombing again. The Strait of Hormuz is open, then it's closed, and I just don't know what the truth is. Cenk, in your opinion, what is the truth? What's going on?
Yeah, so first let's start with the president's polling numbers. Yeah, they've been decimated by this war. They were already in trouble because of the Epstein files, and he didn't do anything about affordability, just gave him massive tax cuts for the rich as usual, did whatever Israel wants as usual. And so now, he's eaten into his own base. So he's barely hanging on to a majority of non-MAGA Republicans that voted for him. Only 53% still support him. He's lost about 20% of hardcore MAGA. His disapproval numbers are at record numbers now. 68% of the country thinks we're going in the wrong direction. About 76% of the country is dissatisfied with how the economy is going. And a lot of that is because of the war. And so the war is obviously driving up gas prices, which is then leading to inflation in other areas. Of course, a lot of things use not just oil and gas, but fertilizer, which has also been blocked through the Strait of Hormuz. So we're having an energy crisis, actually mainly in Asia and Europe, more so than even America. So that's why the South Koreans are livid at the Israelis, that they're having to conserve gas and go through lean times because Israel wanted this war, and literally no one else on planet Earth did. And so shortages in India. And this is all before we re-engage and restart the war, which is what I'm afraid is going to come next. So now some folks have a hard time believing this, but we have to go back to a conversation we had earlier. Remember, in America, we legalize bribery. So one corporation can give an infinite amount to a super PAC, corporate interests, lobbyists, individuals. To give you a sense of the scale of the problem, one family alone, the Adelson family, Miriam and Sheldon Adelson, have given Donald Trump over $317 million in campaign contributions. We used to have a word for that. It was called a bribe. And Trump is so accidentally honest on this stuff, he just can't keep anything in his head from going outside his mouth. So he has said, oh, Miriam, she cares more about Israel than America, right? I'm like, no, that's super awkward. And then he says, oh, Sheldon Adelson used to come in here and tell me what to do all the time. And then I did it, and I moved the embassy for the Adelsons, our embassy in Israel. He's just, basically selling off our foreign policy. To be fair to him, almost all of our politicians do that. Israel gives to 94% of Congress. So Israel is not some unique lobbyist community that is unseen in the world. No, all the lobbyists do this. That's why we give $35 billion in oil subsidies, which they're profitable companies. That makes no sense. Why does an average person have to give money to ExxonMobil? That's insanity. Because Big Pharma's lobby is so strong, we can't negotiate prices. Now, when it comes to Israel, that's when people lose their minds. And mainstream media goes, okay, you're right about Big Pharma, you're right about big oil and defense contractors and every other lobby. But if you say the same exact thing about Israel, we'll call you an anti-Semite, cancel you, and you're never going to ever get another job again. No criticism of Israel is allowed without us doing massive oppression inside this country. So we've now got Israel that is totally empowered to go rogue. They don't follow any laws. They don't follow the laws of war crimes. They've now invaded Lebanon. They say they're going to take all the way to the Litani River. They're going to own southern Lebanon. They've already ethnically cleansed southern Lebanon, moved out 1 million people to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Netanyahu on tape bragged about, oh, we used to have 53% of Gaza after the war. Now we have over 60%. So it was to steal land. That's what it was about. It wasn't self-defense. Lebanon's not self-defense. Israel invaded them. Iran's not self-defense. We invaded Iran. This war was utterly pointless, especially from an American perspective. Let me tell you what American interests are and what Israeli interests are, and they're very, very different. In America right now, because we started this war, we need the Strait of Hormuz open. That's what's hurting our gas prices and all of our other prices, and affordability, inflation. All of that is connected to the Strait of Hormuz. We didn't have that problem before the war, but now we have it. We've got to open it back up. In order to do that, Iran has an enormous amount of leverage. We've got to make a reasonable peace deal. Good news, we were about to have one over this weekend. And all we want, theoretically, is for them to to not make nuclear weapons. And they've already promised 18 different times that they wouldn't do that. They did it under the Obama deal. They've offered it before the war. They've offered it during the war. So that is not an issue. And them promising it doesn't mean anything. It has to be verified. So what they're saying is, yes, we will have international monitors verify that we will not have a weapon. So that's the only thing that America said they cared about before the war. So then we're done. And we just killed 49 of their top regime leaders. Trump says we destroyed their Navy, their Air Force, and everything else. We're done. We have no American interest in there. The only interest left is leave, open up the Strait of Hormuz so we can get our economy back on track. Israel, on the other hand, has said they would like, and again, this is on tape, Netanyahu said it, they would like to be the only regional superpower in the Middle East. In order to do that, they have to destroy every other power in the Middle East. Now, good news for them, they completely control our Congress and our presidents. So they literally gave us a list after 9/11 of 7 countries they wanted us to attack on their behalf. We have attacked all 7. Iran was the last one on that list. So they want them destroyed so that they can't fight back when Israel takes more land, as they are doing today. They don't want anyone to be able to defend themselves. They're going to kill and take land as much as humanly possible, and they want us Americans to pay the bill. They say, you owe us a genocide. You owe us endless string of wars. You owe us a global war on terror. No, that was a global war on Israel's neighbors. That cost us $8 trillion. We gave $320 billion to Israel so far already, lifetime. Why? Why don't they give us the money back?
Cenk.
No, they say, you owe us, you owe us, you owe us. That's why we're in this war. And by the way, last thing, Stephen, is while we're all distracted in Iran, Israel has taken southern Lebanon. And now they're saying they're going to keep it forever. So that was the point of this war. 100% Israeli interest, 0% American interest. Let's get out of there. Let's stop fighting Israel's wars for them and come back home.
What about nuclear weapons? One of the pretenses is that they were weeks away from enriching uranium to a point where that weapon could be used.
Yeah. So that's what Netanyahu's been saying for the last 30 years. Back in the 1990s. It's like, oh, they're weeks away. They're weeks away. Do you know, and you probably don't know because American media pretty much works for Israel. And then when I say that, guys, those are not hyperbole. The Israeli lobby donates, I would say legally bribes like the other lobbies do, 94% of Congress. Number 1 lifetime donor Donald Trump is Israel. Number 1 lifetime donor to Joe Biden. Number 1 lifetime donor to Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Mike Johnson. All of our leaders, their number 1 lifetime donor is AIPAC and the Israeli lobby. They completely control our government. And then our media comes and lies to us and says, oh, they're the victims. Well, we have eyes. We saw Gaza. Gaza's utterly destroyed. And Israel did that with our money. That's insane. So, no, I don't even think Israel's an ally. I don't know why in the world we would ever serve a foreign nation. They're treading all over us. They've taken our sovereignty away. They've taken our freedom away. And all we have is these dupes in mainstream media telling us about how they're doing self-defense. Well, part of self-defense is I take your land. Currently, they're taping themselves going into IDF soldiers going into Lebanese homes, Muslims and Christians, stealing all their property. Then they put it online and go, look, we stole other things. Then they destroy the homes and they say, now this is Israeli territory. That's not self-defense. That's terrorism. We are supporting a terrorist nation, and we're giving them hundreds of billions of dollars, and this isn't even helping Israel. We're enabling their worst instincts, and they're getting the whole world to hate them. How does that help Israel to have the whole world despise you because you're so selfishly driving up everyone's prices and creating endless wars? Literally no other country on earth wants this war in Iran to continue other than Israel.
Kevin, you have a different perspective on the effectiveness and purpose of the original strikes that Trump did. Are you supportive of this military operation at large?
Well, you know, I'm not a shill for any politician. I focus on policy because that's ultimately what survives. Politicians come and go, policy lingers. I've always said that, and that's as an investor what you have to worry about. So let's talk about the situation in the Middle East. For about 49 years, some people would say 60, it depends what you believe in the early years, the Persians were a very advanced society in mathematics, poetry, art, you name it. They're very famous. And then you have this small, I'm going to call it bad management, I don't know what else to call it, that took this society, brutalized the people there, created a million man army run by 150,000 people, a super militia that caused a lot of chaos in that region with proxies, as people have been talking about. This militia is paid with cash that's gotten from the sales of energy. And they would stop killing their own people if they didn't get paid. So that the 150,000 that run that country, that brutalized the almost 100 million others. I mean, it's a really strange platform that hasn't worked for the people there for 60 years. But it was tolerated by all the neighbors until 6 months ago. The United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, they wanted to stay out of it because it was, you know, it was relatively calm. Every 6 months, the Houthis or one of the Iranian proxies would blow up an oil ship, kept the insurance premiums 30% higher. And then the proverbial poo-poo hit the fan. Now, China, let's get down to business, gets 48% of its energy through that strait, as does many other Asian countries. So they, as Jake pointed out, you know, basically are underwater. They don't have energy. Jack, I should say. So, you know, at the end of the day here, there's a problem. And so what's going to happen when this is over, forget about that. Look, you can't let a society that 150 people there say, let's kill everybody. I mean, they're on a different kind of mandate. They're a little strange. You don't want to give those people a nuclear bomb. I don't care who you are. They're just offside, and they're happy to kill their own people, but I don't want them killing everybody else with interballistic missiles. So no, they can't have 90 pounds of enriched uranium, and they're not going to get it, and they're going to keep getting bombed until they give it up. And at some point, somebody in there is going to say, whoa, we're getting tenderized in here, and we got to stop this, and we got to get the best deal we can. We want to stay in power to keep killing our people as long as we can, because we're the 150,000 guys that live very well and everybody else lives like crap. And that's just the way that society works. And if the people want to rise up and kill the 150 that are killing them, they will one day, I don't know. But here's what I think. I think the actual countries around there are going to end up in the same boat that we have in the Suez and Panama Canals, where there's a fee to go through, but it's managed so that no country, including China, gets to run it. And so that has already found peace, and all the shipping lanes are open and the insurance rates are normal there. So if you're Saudi Arabia, you got, let's say it costs $5 billion a month to police the strait. Okay, that's a good number because I'm probably right, pretty close to it. That's nothing for the UAE and for Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain. They're going to need it open. So if they have to be like the United Nations for that region and keep it open, that's great. Now, I'm staying long the UAE because I've invested there in ADGM. I have a company there. I've got employees there. I talk to them every day. I think this is going to end soon, but I would like to see it in a way that Iran is isolated, maybe, they can't control the strait and they can't have the nukes. Those are the two things that I think have to be resolved. And then if they want to brutalize their people forever, okay. They're going to do that. It's a horrible outcome for those people. I feel terrible for them. But this outcome is a good one if we resolve those two things. New policing of the strait, that would be great because the Chinese need that. They want that. And at some point, they're going to squeeze the heads of these Iranian leaders, whoever they are. They keep getting killed and a new one pops up like whack-a-mole. But that's just the way that regime works. And nobody's willing to say, look, I want to take them over because you got the army still being paid. But by blocking that strait for the last 60 days, the amount of money they're losing is $210 million US per 24 hours. So at some point, whoever's running the show there is going to say, if we can't pay our soldiers to kill our people, we're going to be screwed. They're going to come up to the top of the castle and take Frankenstein out. So we got to make sure we cut a deal. That's why I'm optimistic. The price of oil is down to almost 16%. It'll get back near 70. I don't know what that's going to do for the midterms because, the numbers are terrible, but every incumbent gets screwed in the midterms. It's just the nature of how it works. Now, whether they lose the Senate, I don't know. Are they going to lose the House? Who knows? But if the gasoline's back to $70, we won't be having this narrative about unaffordability around energy in the United States. And you just don't know. But I do know that the status quo, because the UAE and Qatar and Bahrain left those Iranians alone until they rained missiles on them. Now they're pissed. And so it's not business as usual. And so I think that the winds of change are going to blow through there. And maybe the upside is the great Persian people get better leadership because, boy, their leaders suck.
Cenk, it sounds like an optimistic outcome is being forecasted by Kevin. And I can see you nodding your head there in disagreement, shaking your head.
Yeah. So look, again, I'm normally an optimist here, but we've gotten ourselves in some significant ruts here. So first of all, this whole idea the Iranian regime is bad. Okay, yeah, it is. It's Muslim fundamentalists. I don't like fundamentalists of any religion. I'm an atheist. They abuse their people and they're corrupt, no question about it. Netanyahu is corrupt. He's up on corruption charges that seem to never come. The Israeli settlers are religious fundamentalists, biggest lunatics on earth. They think that God said to kill the Palestinians and take their land, and we fund them. We give them billions of dollars. So I'm not in favor of any of these fundamentalists, no matter what religion they're from. Now, on the issue of nukes that you asked about earlier, Stephen, you know that the reason I brought up American media is because they pretty much do nothing but Israeli propaganda. They never clarified to anyone, that Iran doesn't have a missile that can deliver any warhead to America. It just doesn't. It's never had it. It didn't have it 30 years ago when Netanyahu started saying it. It doesn't have it today. So, and they never enriched uranium up to 90%, which is where you would have to get it for weapons grade. They get up to about 60%, and then we destroy their nuclear facilities, and Trump bragged about it, and now all that's buried underneath. So where's the question? They're not even close. And again, they've promised not only to this repeatedly in negotiations, but the former Grand Ayatollah, the one we murdered, had done a fatwa, the most important religious edict in Shia Islam. And he said that we are to never build nukes. So when Hamas has something in their charter, the Israelis say, oh, the charter is the most important thing. Then the Grand Ayatollah does a fatwa, way more important than a charter. And they go, oh, ignore that. Ignore that. No, don't ignore that. And why would Iran ever use a nuke? If they use a nuke, then either Israel or us would strike back and would kill 90 million Iranians. Nobody wants that. They want you to believe that the Iranians are irrational, psychotic terrorists. Boo, they're Muslims. Oh, that's super scary, right? No, there is an irrational government in the Middle East. It's Israel. Iran did not attack a single neighbor. Israel has attacked 7 neighbors. Iran hasn't asked us for a single dollar. Israel asked us for hundreds of billions of dollars. So there's one country that is constantly attacking their neighbors and taking land. And by the way, the civilian kill ratio of the IDF is 83%. 83% of the people that they kill are civilians. That is higher than Hamas or Hezbollah or any terrorist group on earth. And they kill about 100 times the civilians of Hamas. So if Hamas is terrorist, it is absolutely indisputable that Israel is a terrorist government. And yet we're forced to fund that when we don't have any money. They have universal health care. They have free college. They have paid family leave. We don't have any of that. And then our greedy and corrupt politicians and media tell us that we owe to Israel is more war and more genocide. The reason why I think we're in a lot of trouble here and it's not going to be easy to resolve is every time we get close to peace, Netanyahu calls Trump, literally happened this weekend. Right after the call, Trump then goes back to warmongering. After the call, we bombed Iran. Israel started heavy bombing of Lebanon. And then Trump came up with 3 new totally impossible things. Give me all the highly enriched uranium on day 1. Well, it's buried under the ground. It's going to take months to take out. Number 2, you all have to join the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords, again, American media paints it as, oh, this wonderful peace plan. It's no such thing. It's to normalize relations with Israel and start doing trade with Israel without getting a promise back that they're going to end the occupation. It is betraying the Palestinians and saying the Israelis can permanently occupy them. By the way, again, never talked about in American media, but we read a lot of this in the Israeli press. And that's why we get a lot of our information on the Young Turks from them, because they actually do pretty good reporting in Israel. And so one of the things is they believe in Greater Israel. They talk about it all the time. Our press never talks about it, but they do. They know they stole our nuclear secrets. They know they stole our nuclear triggers and our uranium. What kind of an ally steals all of our material? And so, but last thing, Stephen, the most important impossible thing was Netanyahu demanded, he made this public, that everyone else stop fighting except Israel, that they have a right to keep attacking and invading and taking southern Lebanon. Well, that's not a peace deal. Nobody's going to sign on to that. So, and Israel has said no matter what happens, they're going to keep attacking Lebanon. That means even if Iran and America make a peace deal, Israel will literally ruin it on a first day. So we can't ever get to peace as long as we're allies with Israel. It's literally impossible. They're massive warmongers, and they say we need endless wars. And by the way, it makes sense because they're a settler colony. In order for a settler colony to expand, you need permanent war so they can keep taking more land. We shouldn't be funding these terrorists. So we have a way of getting out. This is what you do. You just say, hey, we make a peace deal with Iran. We take Israel out of it. Israel, you want peace? You have peace. If you want war, have war with Iran. It's not our business.
So what are you predicting, Cenk, is going to happen? What is your prediction?
Disaster. I'm positive disaster. So there's no way we're going to get to peace because Israel says their line in the sand is they're going to keep attacking Lebanon. As long as they keep attacking Lebanon, Iran is not going to get to a peace deal.
What does disaster mean? Specifically?
Oh, disaster means we re-engage in the bombing. We have 50,000 ground troops on those ships. People forgot that we're there. Of course, it has to be American ground troops. It can't be precious Israeli ground troops because Israeli lives are apparently worth more than American lives if you listen to American politicians. So we have the ground troops there. We're going to very likely do more disastrous bombing of Iran. And then Iran is going to bomb the oil and gas fields of the Gulf countries. And then not only will gas prices go absolutely through the roof and cause a massive economic recession, perhaps depression worldwide, but on top of that, then they're going to say, well, it's not enough. We want more. And the infrastructure is already destroyed. It's going to take 5 to 10 years to rebuild that infrastructure. They're going to do permanent damage to our economy. Why? They want more land. Enough with supporting the terrorists.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.